Hey guys, it's Jackson here from Titanic Games, and in this video we're going to be continuing the survival game series, and we'll be finishing up our new and improved UI. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first thing that we'll do is go into our UI folder here, and we're going to right click, go to user interface, and create a new widget blueprint. So since this is going to be an actual widget and not, and it'll be part of an actual user interface, we're going to call it widget underscore and then whatever we want to call it. So this first one here is going to be for health. Okay, so we'll open this guy up. Now we don't actually need the canvas panel here, so we'll go ahead and get rid of that. And what we're going to do is we're going to create add an overlay, okay, from our panels. So this will allow us to stack things, in a nice, neat, organized fashion, I guess. Okay, then we're going to take 3 images and pop them on here. So 1, 2, 3. Now right away, the first one, I'm going to untick the is variable because we don't need it to be a variable. And we'll call this background. All right, it's purely going to be the background. Okay, now for the second one, it should be a variable, but we're going to call this ring. Okay, and now this last one, we're going to call this symbol, or symbol. And we don't need that one to be a variable. Okay. I mean, we could technically, if we wanted, depending on how you want to create your, your widgets in your UI. But the way that we're going to be doing it, we're going to be, custom placing things, I guess. So, so we don't need to be able to edit everything. We just need to be able to edit the ring because the ring will be our progress bar essentially. Okay. So for this first one here, let's go ahead and go into brush, and we're going to search for an image. Now I believe we want to look for. What is it? Progress. Is it progress empty new? That might be the one. Yep. So it should have this kind of faded out line around it, which is perfect. And we're going to go ahead and center that. Then we'll take the ring here, and we're going to look for ring. Okay, and we want this MI progress ring. Okay. Then we're going to take this, set its size to 512 by 512. And then we'll center this as well. So it should overlay right on top of the image, or right on top of the bar of the image. Okay. So next we have our symbol, and we'll again center this. Now the symbol is going to be what we want this widget to represent. Okay. So this widget, it's our health one, so we want it to be our heart. So we're going to look for that heart texture. There it is. So by default, it's very massive, and I've done a lot of playing around to get this to work. But really the best workflow that you could possibly have is to edit this in your Photoshop or something, and change up how it actually looks within 512 by 512 space, or rather within the same space that your background is using. Okay, because then the placement will be more accurate and won't be subject to resizing things, I guess. So. Anyways, we'll go ahead and take this symbol, okay, and we're going to dial it down to about 50 and 50, okay, because once we add it to our UI, it will maintain this size, okay, while the rest of it shrinks, okay, and that's kind of what I was just talking about if you set it up correctly, you don't have to worry about the resizing, all right, because it'll automatically just work with you, but unfortunately, I'm no master, so we have to deal with it. Okay. But then I am going to add just a bit of a padding here to the top because I find that it helps to push it down just a teeny bit, so it helps center it a little better. Okay, so there we go. We have our widget for our health. We'll go ahead and duplicate this guy, and we'll call this widget underscore stamina next. Open this guy up. All right, going to be a very similar thing. The only thing we need to change is the symbol. So we'll change this to running person. Yes, there we go. So we have our running person now. Okay, and again, we're going to set this to about 50 by 50, and I don't think we actually need any padding for this one. Okay, so that's it for the stamina. We'll create another one for our hunger. Open this guy. Again, take the image, change it to our chicken leg. Okay, resize it a little bit, 50-50, compile and save. And then for our last one here, the thirst, duplicate this one more time, and we'll call it widget underscore thirst. Okay. Take this guy here and change this to our, what is it, our water drop, I believe, right there. Okay. And we'll do 50 by 50 once again. Okay, great. So we have all of our, kind of basic widgets. Next, we're going to do the thermometer one. Okay, the one that will represent our world temperature and our body temperature. Okay, so we'll take our widget thirst. We can duplicate it once more, but we're going to call this instead widget underscore thermometer. Let's call it widget underscore world temp. All right, open this up. Now, a couple things we need to change. Right, the ring here. Well, the ring, we don't need it to be, a ring anymore. We're going to actually change the layout of these. So if we drag this down, so it should be now below symbol. So that means it's going to be on top of whatever our symbol is. Okay, so ring, I'm going to rename it to fill because that'll make more sense. Symbol and background, those names are fine. Now the background, we're going to change this guy to the empty no ring. Okay, so if I, let's see, if I take our fill here and I just reset this, oops, that wasn't smart. Here, let me just hide it really quick. Okay, so you should see that that ring is now gone, right? So it's a custom image specifically for this purpose, okay? So that we don't have to show it. All right, but we will turn the fill back on in a second. Now for the symbol itself, we're gonna go look for our, what is it, thermometer background. Yeah, we want the thermometer background styled. Okay, so we'll pick that. It's very large to start. I found that a value of 70 works pretty good. Okay, again, this is subject to the resizing. All right, if you actually mapped it out so its edges, so it looked this size in comparison to the rest of the circle, then it would work out better. But again, a lack of knowledge on my part. So anyways, we'll click the fill now and go to the image, and we're going to use the, well, for the world temp, I've debated whether or not to use the red or blue for world temp, but I've ultimately decided on going with red. Oops, I should probably give it a little more context there. So we want the MI thermometer red. Okay, so in doing this, of course it's invisible right now, but if we make it visible, you'll see it's very large. Okay, so again, we want to dial that down to 70 and 70, and you should see that it fits in really nicely to our styled edge there. Okay, great. So there you have it. There's our world temp. Now we can basically duplicate this one and call it widget underscore body temp. Go figure. Open this one up, take this, and we'll just change it to thermometer blue. All right, perfect. So that's actually all we need to do. Very simple. Now we can go ahead and start adding it to our game HUD. So we'll open up the game HUD, and before we delete anything, we're gonna get rid of all the bindings here so we don't have any errors. So we'll say remove binding from that guy, remove binding, and remove binding. Now we're free to delete all of our progress bars. So woohoo! Got rid of them. Love it. Let's see. Next, I'm just gonna reorganize this, the body temp text, just in the layout so that it's logically above the time text like it's displayed here. Okay, and we'll be able to get rid of these too, since we'll be displaying it up here. But it's more for debugging right now, just to make sure we're not messing anything up. So we'll go back to the graph now. I'm going to delete all these, get such and such bar percentages, close everything else. Okay, so now we're in the event graph. Now we're actually going to be using two events here. We're going to use event construct. All right, and we're also going to use event tick. Okay. So before we do anything with those, though, we need to actually add our widgets. So how do we find them? Well, if we go down here under user created, we should be able to see all the ones that we've created, which is awesome. So we'll go ahead and start with our health first. Drag that guy in. Okay, so here as I resize it, you'll see what I was kind of talking about with, again, how it would be better to make this so that it's not size dependent, because then it would be easier for you, to scale it like I'm kind of doing here. But anyways, let's go ahead and give it some hard values here. I've found that 80 by 80. Looks pretty nice. Then I'm going to set its position X and Y to 40, 40. Okay, so it should be like right about here-ish. All right, next I'm going to add the stamina one. Pop him in. Okay, and I'm going to set him at about, let's see. So doing this a little mathematically, we'll separate it by 100 each space. Okay, size X and size Y will again be 80. All right. We'll add our hunger next. Again, separating by 100. Wow, hit it right on the nose there. So it should be 240 by 40, and then 80 and 80. Awesome. Thirst, same kind of deal. 340, 40, 80, and 80. Okay, then world temp. I've decided to put world temp first. You can put it wherever you want. Wow, again, right on the spot. 440, 40, 80, 80. A lot of entering numbers, as you can tell here. Not the most exciting thing, but it'll be cool in a second. Okay, great. So we have all of our widgets now. This is looking good. If we go ahead and press play, we can see it up in the top. Right? So we see that it looks nice. We like it. So let's go ahead and set up the bindings now that these will work from. Okay, and by bindings I don't mean bindings in the traditional, or in the, I don't even know if it's traditional, but you know, the usual sense of creating a binding from the designer here. We're going to create it in the event graph. Now I guess before we do that, let's rename all of these. So I'm going to call this health widget. Rename this guy to stamina widget. You know, I'm just going to pause the video so you don't have to watch me write, but just go ahead and rename them to, you know, whatever they are, and then widget. All right, so all of yours should be looking something like this now. I don't know why this it's trying to keep a period there. That's a little weird. Okay, anyways, that's fixed. So yours should be looking something like that. All right, so now we're ready to go into the graph side of things. Okay, so what we need to do to be able to kind of set these fills, first of all, is we need to create dynamic material instances of each of those, of each of the rings, okay? Because without that, you know, we can't change the alpha value, which is on our material here, right? We need to be able to access this, okay? So in event construct, we're going to do a function that I'm going to call create DMIs, okay? Which is simply means create dynamic material instances, okay? It's just shorthand for it. So we're going to do a sequence inside of here. We have to do it, we have to have 6 pins here because we have 6 dynamic material instances to create. So the first one, we'll take our health, and we're going to say get ring. All right. And then from here, we'll say get dynamic material. Right? It's just get dynamic material. And then from here, we want to promote this to a variable, and then we'll call it whatever the widget was, so health, and then DMI. Okay, that's all we got to do. Pretty simple. Plug it in. Okay, now I'll do one more of these with you, and then show you one of the thermometers and let you finish. Okay, so we'll take the stamina one now. Again, say get ring. Okay, get dynamic material. Plug it in, and then right click, promote it to a variable with whatever the name of the widget was, so stamina in this case, followed by DMI. Okay, so now just to give you an example of just one of the body temperature ones, or the temperature ones rather, I'll take the world temp widget down here, and this one, instead of ring, right, it's get fill. Okay, but it's the same exact process. Get dynamic material, right click, promote to variable, call it whatever the widget was, so world temp DMI, and then hook it up. So go ahead and do this same exact process for the last temperature one, and then for the hunger and thirst, and then plug them in, and I'll see you in a sec. Alright, so you should have everything now looking just like this. Okay, you should have your hunger widget, getting the ring, getting the dynamic material, and promoting it to a variable. Same for the thirst, and then doing the same thing, you know, kind of idea down here for the body temp widget. Okay, so once we have that, we can go back to the event graph, and we can add that function. Plug it in, and there we go. All right, compile and save. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to provide the functionality to constantly update our UI. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll use our event tick. We're going to drag off. We'll do a sequence. All right, and you could package this all into a function later. Kind of similarly to how we did this, but it should be pretty tidy as it is. So we're going to add until we have 6 pins, because we have 6 functions we need to update. So the first one, go ahead and create a new function. We'll call this update health percent. Okay, or update healath percent. Health percent. There we go. Okay, so with this, what we want to do is, we're basically going to set it up very similarly to how we did the progress bars. How we created the binding and we just divided the current health by max health and then use that as the percentage. We're going to do the same thing, except we're going to plug the value of our percentage into a parameter for a dynamic material instance of this UI progress bar. Okay, specifically we're going to be setting the alpha. Okay, so our alpha now acts as that percentage value from the progress bar. So that's one way you could think of it. So we'll go back into here, and I'm going to take our character reference, get it. I'm going to say get current health. Right. Then we want to get the max health. Okay. And then from there, we're going to do a float divided by float. Plug it in. And now what we want to do is we want to check if it's less than or equal to 0. Okay, the reason for this, okay, then we'll do a branch. And the reason for this is because sometimes you can get kind of these really lingering values left over in the, at least left over in the material that we've set up here, because the gradients that we're using, they're not like 100% perfect, right? It's very difficult to get them to be perfect. I haven't been able to find one that's perfect, so there's always going to be like a little lingering amount. So we want to make sure that we set it as close to 0 as possible once we run out. Okay, so that's why we're going to check if it's less than or equal to 0, and if it is, then we'll set that alpha, for sure to 0 if we can. Okay, so yeah, what we'll do here is we want to take our dynamic material instance for our health, get it, and then we want to say set scalar parameter value. Okay, plug this in. The parameter is, of course, alpha. All right, now for this one, like I said, we're going to set it to 0 for sure. Okay, then we'll copy and paste it there, hook it up again. Parameter name should still be alpha, but this time we're going to plug the value into the result of our division here. Okay, because again, this acts as the percentage or the alpha. Okay, so compile and save that. Go back to our event graph. Of course, it's complaining because we haven't added it yet. But if we take update health percent, drag it in here, hit compile, and now it's it's working nicely. It's not complaining. Okay, so we'll do that now for the stamina one as well, and then I'll let you guys do the hunger and thirst, since they're literally exactly the same, just changing out the variables. Okay, so we'll add one more. Update stamina percent. It could be more precise to say update stamina like alpha, but it makes sense to me, so call it whatever makes sense to you, basically. So we'll get our current stamina here. We'll get our max stamina. We will do a good old float divided by float. Check if this guy is less than or equal, not less than, we want to say less than or equal to. I mean, you really could just check if it's equal to 0, but but I like to do less than or equal to, just in case, just in case something wonky happens, and it'll account for it. Okay, so yeah, now, instead of using the health DMI, right, we want to use the stamina DMI. Okay, so that's the, the main part when you guys do your functions. Okay, when you create the hunger and thirst one, make sure you're using the current, current and max of the variable, and then you're using the correct DMI. Otherwise, everything else is the same. So we'll set scalar parameter once more. Call it alpha. Plug this guy in. This will be 0. This value will be that. And just to make this clear, that I'm not just entering some random, arbitrary name, the name that you enter for the parameter has to be exactly the same as the name of the parameter in the material. Okay, so make sure you're doing that, and then everything will work out nice for you. All right, so I'll go ahead and stop it there. You guys create the next two functions for the hunger and thirst, and I'll see you in a second. All right, so we're back. Now your function should be looking something like this right now. Okay, all we did was just change out the variables, okay, and just create the two new functions there, the hunger and thirst percent ones. Okay, so they are. Now we'll go back to the event graph and we'll just add those in. So update stamina, update hunger, and update thirst. Perfect. Okay. So now next we need to do the temperature. Okay. Now the tricky thing with doing the temperature is that it's not really mapped. I guess if that could be the word I use, but it's not really it's not really mapped to a range that we're usually used to working with as far as percentages go. Okay, because with a thermometer, right, you could have anything ranging from like 140 degrees or something as the max, all the way down to negative 40 degrees, right? And since you're working with a negative there's just a couple little extra things that you have to take into account, when you factor that into how you display, what the temperature is in the thermometer. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and work on that. So first thing we'll do is create a new function that we're going to call update world thermometer. Okay, and we don't want a little t in there. It's almost got away from me. Okay, now with this function we essentially want to do the same thing that we've been doing, right, which is set the alpha value of the parameter on one of our DMIs here. So for this one we're going to use our world temp DMI, get that, and say set scalar parameter, reposition that a little bit. Okay, and again call this guy alpha. Now for the value, we've got just a couple little things that we have to do. So to help us out here, we're going to create a couple variables. So this first one we're going to call world thermometer max, world thermometer min, and we'll add one more that we'll call world thermometer offset. Okay, so basically what each of these is going to represent is, well, the max is going to be, now that we've compiled, we can give it a default value. So the max is going to be the maximum, temperature, I guess, that we use on our thermometer. Okay, so I'm going to say something like 120. Now the world thermometer min is going to be, obviously the minimum amount. So I'm going to say negative 20. Okay, now the offset will be a value that we add on to kind of our world temperature. All right, so that we can account for the negative or potential negative values in the min. Okay, so what we'll do though first, in order to set that offset, is we're going to come back out here to the event graph. I'm just going to move this down, and we're going to create a new function. Okay, and this function we'll call let's call it calculate world. Yeah, we'll call it calculate world thermometer offset. All right, and that's going to do exactly that. It's going to calculate what our offset is depending on what the the world thermometer min is. So go ahead and take this. We'll get it, and we're going to check if it's less than 0. Okay, and we'll do a branch, and basically if it's less than 0, then we know it's a negative number. Okay, and so when we go off and set it, right, we need to set it to the absolute value of it, so that we're not dealing with negatives, right? We want to make sure that our range is always dealing with positives here. So we'll say set world thermometer. Did I spell that wrong? Oh, I totally spelled that wrong. See, it helps to spell things correct, because when you go looking for them, if they're not spelled correct, it can be impossible to find them. So that's just more of a commentary on me never spelling things the way I want to. Okay, so we'll set both of these off of either true or false, but now the value that we set it will depend, upon, well, this little Boolean check here. So if it's false, we'll set it to 0, but if it's true, then that means it's negative, so we want to take the absolute value of it and just plug it in. Okay, and that's really all you got to do. It's pretty simple. So we'll compile and save that, go back to the event graph, and add that function in here on event construct. Okay. Now we're going to create another function that will help us get the range that we're working with. So we'll call get world thermometer range. All right. Now here we're going to add one output. It's going to be of type float, and we'll just call it range. Okay. We'll drag this out a little ways. Actually, we really don't need to, but we want to make this pure and const. And if you don't know what pure and const means, basically pure just makes it so that it doesn't have an execute node going through it. You're basically just returning values. Okay. You can pass in values, but it's, there's no execution going on. And then const ensures that you're not changing anything, any of your classes variables inside of the function. Okay. You're just getting things. Okay. So anyways, for this function, we're just going to take our max and subtract whatever our min is. Okay. Take that, plug it in, and there we go. That's all we have to do. Pretty simple. Okay, I'm actually going to close some of these other ones so we don't have a whole bunch of stuff cluttering up our screen. Okay. Now we can go back inside this update world thermometer, and we can go grab our character. We're going to get the modified temp. All right. Now the modified temp is, the world temperature, except factoring in any kind of area modifiers or, whatever, or overrides basically. So from here, we will add onto that the offset. Okay. Because, if our range is a negative, then we want to add an offset onto it so that it, it still fills up the percent correctly. Okay. And then we'll do a float divided by float. We'll plug, or we're going to run this through a clamp. Okay, just to make sure our percent stays within its bounds. Because say, our thermometer is only going to go up to 120 or down to -20. But if the world temperature, strays from those ranges, then it'll just be, it'll just be at the max or minimum. Okay. All right. And then the last thing, now that we created that function, that get world thermometer range, we'll drag that in. And that's what we're going to divide by. Okay, because that's like, this will create our percent, I guess, our percent full. So we'll go to the event graph now, and we'll go ahead and add that function in there. So update world thermometer, and perfect. Now the last one we need to create is our body temperature one. So very similarly to how we created a max and min for our world thermometer, we're going to do the same thing for our body temperature. So we'll say body thermometer max and body thermometer min. Okay, compile and save that really quick so you can add some default values. For the min, I'm going to choose like 70, right? And again, this is working in Fahrenheit here. And then for the max, I'm going to choose like 110. Okay. So, and those are more of arbitrarily chosen values. You can choose whatever you want. Okay, but we'll just go with it. So now that we have that, we're going to create a function which we will call update. Wow. Update body. What do we want? Update body thermometer. Okay. So that's our function name. And in this function, again, we're going to be doing, something very similar to the update world thermometer. Okay, we're going to be setting the scalar. So let's just actually copy that. We can paste it in here, right? Because that's our end goal again. But of course, we're going to use our body temp DMI for this. Okay. Now the value is again actually going to use a clamp. So we'll work a little bit backwards here, just for now. Okay. So we're going to do a clamp. It's going to clamp between, again, 0 and 1. Now, for calculating what our alpha will be, or this percentage will be, we need to take our character reference and get his body temp, right? Now, similarly to how we did the offset, in here with adding on an offset, we're gonna do kind of a similar idea here, but instead of like adding or subtracting a specific like calculated offset, we're just going to subtract whatever our minimum is. Okay. So whatever our body thermometer minimum is, because that will get us down to a value that will work within our body thermometer range. Okay. So speaking of that, let's create a function called get body thermometer range. Okay, and that's going to have an output on it again that we will just call range. It's going to be pure and const once more. Okay, compile and save really quick. And we're going to subtract our max, or our body temperature, or body thermometer max from the min. So float minus float. Hook that guy up. And there we go. That's all we got to do. Okay, compile and save. We'll go back to our update body thermometer. And now we're going to take this and divide it by our get body thermometer range. Plug it in. Run this through our value. And there we go. So the last thing to do is plug it into the event tick. So we'll take update body thermometer, plug that guy in, and now, assuming we've done everything correctly, it should all work. So let's go ahead and try it out and hope for the best, okay? Or actually, let's just make sure that our environments, are set up similarly, so that we make sure that we aren't having any discrepancies, okay? So we all are, excuse me, so that we're all doing the same, have the same kind of world settings here. So my day is, 0.5, starts at 6, ends at, 20. And let's use this world modifier here. So let's make sure that we're overriding the world temperature, and then overridden world temperature is like 0. Okay, because this will help us test out the thermometer for both the world and body temperature. Okay, so we'll press play. All right, so there we go. We can see that all of our UI are updated. So the thirst is decreasing, the hunger is decreasing. The world temperature is updating based on our world temperature in the the little top right here. Okay, oops, where did that go now? There it is. Okay. Let's see. If we go into this little area, you'll see that the world temperature will drop down to 0. Okay, and you see it's updating correctly. So we still have some space to go before we get to that -20. So we know that it's working within our range correctly. But now our body temp is starting to drop. So if you look at the the body temp thermometer there, you'll see that that starts to drop. Now as we get cold, remember in the past video we added in some functionality to damage our health. So we'll be able to see the health damaging, and it will probably eventually kill us, but well, anyways, I'll just come out here to show some of the other stuff. But if we hold shift and sprint, you see that one works. We release, it goes back up. All right, so I mean, there you go, there you have it, right? There's how to add kind of a cool UI, something that that works a little better. So let's see, we'll go back to our project. All right, and now is there anything else that we have to add? I don't think so, but I will touch on one thing really quick, and that thing is that if you wanted, right, you could add, say, like some text to like the side here that says like whatever the temperature actually is, for to kind of help players understand what it is. Okay, and then you could have whatever the temperature is being represented in, or like the degree type, so like Celsius or Fahrenheit. All right, if you guys want to see how to do that, just ask and I'll put it up. But other than that, you really don't need any of this. And then the only other thing, I guess, is how to display our time. So if you guys have any suggestions on how you want to display the time, let me know, and we'll be sure to do that in the future. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked the video. If you like it, like or subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.